If there is one thing that we know about Fanatics and Michael Rubin is that they know how to throw a party. We've seen Michael Rubin kind of notoriously have the party. I think it's like in the Hamptons or something. I forget exactly where it is, but he has that summer party where all the celebrities and athletes go. You know, we saw a lot of the quarterbacks in the NFL that were there this year. And it seems like if you went to the party this year, that you then were obligated to go to Fanatics Fest, because it seemed like that was the list of athletes and the list of celebrities that were on the docket. And I mean, I don't even know if anybody kept track of like which people were supposed to be there and then they actually were there. Tom Brady was there. Gronk was there. I think Travis Scott was there. I mean, he has a card Topps product that's coming out. I know it was being promoted. I think it's sold out. I'm pretty sure. So like his product is out now, basically, or it should be out soon. Either way, they were all there. And from a card perspective, I don't know. I didn't really see too much about like what was going on like the card floor, I guess is maybe you could call it, like the where people were buying and selling cards. I didn't really see too much info about that. One sports card related thing that I did see though was by the entrance. I think Michael Rubin and anybody who recorded the entrance saw up at the top of the stairs, there were cards for presumably cards for players that either had come out, because I think they were promoting whoever the rookie. I think maybe it was Jackson Holiday. I forget who the baseball player was, but they also had like a tennis card. They had the Wembanyama rookie that's been kind of famous, and maybe that's why potentially the news cycle being focused around Topps Chrome basketball is the reason why I hadn't really seen much marketing, I guess, around this product, because I really hadn't seen any info on it. Like I hadn't seen any previews. I didn't know who was on the checklist. But it's going to be a Topps football product that has apparently a Bryce Young. CJ Stroud. Sorry, I for some reason I keep getting them mixed up. The Alabama, Ohio State. I think they played each other a bunch of times too, so I get them mixed up sometimes. But the CJ Stroud, there was a CJ Stroud rookie card that was up on this banner, and that is for a football product from last year that hasn't come out yet, that I haven't seen any info on. So I don't know when this product is going to be coming out. I don't know if this is like a soon release, like, and you've heard me on this podcast talk, I don't know, at length about the release schedule for anybody, for everybody, basically. It's not just, I don't think it's just a Panini thing. I think Panini is one of the main culprits of releasing products like late and like not just over. I don't think it's an oversaturation of the market necessarily, but it's just like Panini is known for coming out with products like after the next draft class has like been drafted, basically. So, and we're not even talking about the next draft class being drafted. We're talking about the next season that's about to start. Like the preseason's already underway, and we're still about to get a Bryce or a CJ Stroud rookie from last year. And I actually think it kind of brings up an interesting concept of like rookie cards and products that have rookie cards in them. And the concept overall for me, I think is like, and this also may be something I don't 100% agree with. I'm kind of not spitballing necessarily, but I'm brainstorming in a way here that like bringing up a concept that I think could be interesting for sports cards basically. So like, instead of coming out with the products when the rookies are rookies, like coming out with the product the year after they're rookies, maybe could potentially be good for cards. And I know for the card companies, I definitely don't think they would want to do that, because the selling of potential. So the JJ McCarthy, like I was talking about on Friday or Thursday's episode, with the buying and selling of potential versus the buying and selling of actual good play on the field, I think is something where sports card companies probably wouldn't want to wait a year. It would probably eat into their profits a little bit because you're going to have rookies who within the first year, that they're not going to be good. Like that's just what you can run into when you are delaying a product like that for a year. I don't know. It's probably a product where, like I was talking about with the Will Levis autographs, I hadn't seen any Will Levis autographs, even though I knew he had a Fanatics exclusive. This is probably where all those autographs are going to be coming out of. I don't know if Topps is going to have multiple products too. Like that's sort of the other weird thing here. It's like it opens up, I think, the possibilities for like multiple different products to be released for Topps football from last year. To get those players that had those autographs in there, I think is going to be important for them. They're obviously don't want to waste their money on getting exclusive autograph deals and then just never fulfilling the autographs, I guess. But the concept of waiting a year, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I also don't know what the lead time, I think, is another interesting example here, like of how long it takes to make a card product. Like, do they or would they want to sell cards with only the players that are actually good, like or players that actually are showing that they will be good? Because if it's second year for rookies, you're still probably going to run into the issue where it's like you don't know 100% one way or the other whether a rookie is going to pan out or not. I think you get a decent idea, but I do think there have been a lot of players that have kind of crawled their way back into relevancy. I think is, I don't know. That's a little over the top, but they have been not so good at the beginning of their career and then they kind of turn it around. I think, there are players that have done that. So I don't know, but that's, and then the weird thing, like, I think Geno Smith was one example of that, but like, I don't know. I think the thing with that is like once a player within the sports cards within the industry has like that stink on them, like once they have like the you're bad kind of aura, like it's pretty hard to shake that type of thing off. And I think just in general, that's the case with sports cards and just with stuff in general. It's like as soon as one thing goes sour with either a product or a player or a company, the comeback is much harder than it would be to figure out if they could just do it right the first time. You know what I'm saying? So I think with Fanatics, we're still going to see, I don't know. I think we'll see all the quarterbacks from last year. And I don't know. I don't think they can do like a dual product like this year and last year and call them all rookies. But at the same time, I don't know. Fanatics kind of is running the industry. So maybe this is just something that they can do and that we will see. I don't know. I'm hoping we probably don't. This is something I just made up. So hopefully, if Fanatics is taking any of my ideas, don't take that one. Take the rest of them. I'm fine with, or unless you want to pay me, I don't know, whatever. But we are going to, I guess one of the big pieces of news coming out of Fanatics Fest is that we're going to be getting a Topps Chrome football product. And maybe this isn't even that big of breaking news, but for me, it was breaking news, which is why I talked about it on today's podcast. Now, this was not a piece of news that came out during Fanatics Fest. I guess it was technically it was, because I think the final sale of these cards and the print run was something that everyone was going to be wondering. It was a Topps Now card. It was the triple with LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. And the contest basically was that if you buy any of the Topps Now cards, you would have a chance to get one of these cards. And the print run was over. It broke the Topps record, but like it absolutely shattered the record. Like I'm pretty sure the record for highest Topps Now card was around, I think it was that Bernie Sanders card, or it was either the Bernie Sanders card or it might have been the Wander Franco card that sold in the like. Oh no, it was the Shohei Ohtani, because I think they did something similar with this with that one, where if you bought the card, you were then eligible to get like an autograph from Ohtani, and I think it was
I'm pretty sure it was like his first Dodger card or something, and it was like it broke 100,000. This one, 588,030. That's how many of these cards sold. Now, we also saw, which I didn't think it was, honestly, I don't know. I didn't think it was big enough to really do a whole episode on, because I've talked about bounties and how I think most of the time they're made and they don't even get fulfilled, or we don't even hear about them because it's like nobody like maybe the person that pulled the card isn't even on social media potentially. But so Sports Card Investor did a thing where he was like, it was $100,000 for the card, whoever gets it, and then he also was offering some like VIP package to his store, which I thought, pretty cool. I mean, it's obviously the store is obviously huge, and it probably would be cool to go behind the scenes. Then Ken Golden came over the top and absolutely, well, no, not absolutely, but he dunked on Sports Card Investor a little bit. He said, "I'll give people 150 for this card if you are for the bounty or whatever." Now, I also saw kind of something that I was a little bit surprised by, but there's no way to, at least that I know of, there's no way to check to see if this is legitimate or not. But they did up the price of this Topps Now card. And someone was pointing out that they upped the price of the Topps Now from, I think it was $8.99 usually to $11.99 for this card. And then they, on top of that, sold 588,000. So I don't really even have much of an explanation for that, other than people really want to get that auto for those three players, that triple auto. I mean, we've seen how large the triple cards of basketball players over the past couple of years have gotten so much publicity. And I don't even know really what I don't know. I'm sort of a little bit of a loss for words, but I am nervous or wondering if like the bounty for a card that you're still able to buy like that. If I'm Topps, I obviously love the promotion that the Sports Card Investor and Golden gave to this potential triple auto. That's a 1 of 1. That's going to be one of the first, I believe, from what I read from Topps, they were saying it's the first ever LeBron James autograph, which I thought he was in Bowman basketball, which maybe that was, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I thought he was in Bowman basketball, whatever. But first ever LeBron and Curry auto on the same card. And then, well, yeah, obviously it would be the first ever Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron triple auto. I mean, that obviously, that kind of goes without saying. If it's the first LeBron Steph Curry card, obviously it's going to be the first LeBron Steph Curry KD card. They were also saying that, what was the last thing in this tweet that I just read that I clicked off the screen? It's going to be an on-card auto as well. That's I think another big piece of why this card went so crazy. But it really, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily the first time that this has happened, but the first time that I can remember in, at least from, I don't know, I'm going to explain something and maybe it'll make sense, maybe it won't. I think it's the first time we've ever really seen like a lottery ticket be kind of, the concept of a lottery ticket be used within sports cards, because I mean, if 500, it's obviously not 588,000 different people. Right. And sorry. So they upped the price potentially. And when I was looking at the MLB Topps Now, they were $8.99, but I don't know if the other Olympic cards could have been $11.99. So I don't know if they raised the price or not. That was just something I saw. If they did, that would, make sense. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they expected to sell 588,000, but the fact that you had two people within the industry who are offering, at least 150K. And if you have the card, it's not like this is just some random person who, like, if you buy the card, they're not going to take it. A Ken Golden, which he had the higher price. So a Ken Golden or a Jeff Wilson, they're pretty prominent within the community. So they would probably hold to whatever the contract, or I don't know if it's a contract necessarily, but the agreement or whatever. So this is really the first time where we've seen, like, hypothetically, obviously with 580,000, your chances are really going down. If this was like a 1 in, I don't know, 150,000 chance, that would be kind of interesting. I would also like to know if somehow Ken Golden or Jeff Wilson didn't get inside info on how much or how many of these cards actually sold, because I don't know. I think it's good promotion, and hypothetically, if you don't have to actually pay for the card, that never really, the bounty concept, I feel like, is really only like David Adams has done it. I believe Blez Bros, or I don't know if they Blez Bros. I know Blez is their last name, but I forget if it's Blez Bros together or whatever. But I know that I think that they've done it. But yeah, David Adams they flew out, they bought, I believe it was the last one was the Babe Ruth Superfractor. I think that was the last one that they bought, or was it Tom Brady card? I forget off the top of my head which one it was. But if 588,000 of these cards are selling, the chances that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the customer base of this card really would be, but like Topps really, I mean, the fact that I don't know if it's one person that it can't be one person. It'd have to be multiples of different people who are ordering that many for it to be that high, for it to be 5 times the highest by 5 times after all of the time that Topps has had the Topps Now concept, the print on demand concept, for it to be 5 times higher than any other card that's ever sold. It's probably a group of different people who, if you get that one of one auto, it's on card. I guess on one hand, I'm surprised that Topps is coming out with the card, but on the other hand, they just sold 588. They just sold 588,000 versions of the base card with a chance to get this auto. Obviously you're gonna get the other numbered ones. I'm wondering if they're gonna increase the amount of numbered cards that they put in this, or if they're gonna stick with what they usually do, which I think is like, you usually do 1 of 1, usually do 10 and 5. And then from there, it's usually after 10, it's maybe 25 and then 99, and then usually 199 and then 250. We'll see if they do that with this card. I don't know. I would imagine it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be that bad of an idea if they were to, but we now have a new record for the Topps Now. And if you, I mean, like I said, it's really, you're going to own a piece of history if you do own this card, but just know that there's a potential that like 300,000 or 400,000 other people also own a piece of history for this card. But one good thing, I guess, is that if you are looking to buy it on the secondary market, it's probably going to be pretty easy. So over the weekend, this wasn't really having to do with Fanatics Fest or whatever, which, as things are coming out, I think Thursday and Friday there may be some more Fanatics Fest episodes of stuff that I talk about. But at least for right now, I thought that this was a pretty big card that sold over this past weekend. It was a 1 of 1 Kobe from 2003. I'm trying to find it. It was sold through, I thought I had this ready. Golden sold it. Wow, sorry about that. Golden sold a $1.5 million Kobe card. It was, from some of the descriptions, I don't know if this was the first 1 of 1 logo. I have to imagine it's probably one of the first Logo Man Kobe autos like this, cards like this. It's from the 2003 Ultimate Collection from Upper Deck, which, if you look at that era of Upper Deck, it really is pretty wild. Like the 2003, 2004 LeBron years of Upper Deck, when they had most of the LeBron autos. I don't know if they had all of them, but I know Topps didn't, because this was the first Topps auto, at least from what they said, from the triple auto. But I think that he was on that 1 of 1 basketball, which maybe that product hasn't come. No, that product should have come out. I like I said, I'm confused about why they said that, but either way, Upper Deck and then Panini, I believe that they may have had some LeBron autos, but I don't think they had many. If they did have any, I'm not even 100% sure if they did. I know Upper Deck did, but I think it's interesting. You look back at that era and the impact of some of the sets that came out, and it makes me wonder if there are any sets like that are coming out nowadays where they're just, or at least with the initial release of the product. I think
we have changed so much within sports cards that I think there aren't really there. It's going to be hard. There aren't going to be these diamonds in the rough, like that type of product that came out in this era versus the era of the first LeBrons, this one of one. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure. I was looking at write-ups or looking at a couple people talk about it, and PSA had tweeted about it. Let's see what PSA. I did have that one saved here. So we highlighted a one of one that sold on Saturday. It is from the 2003 Ultimate Collection, Ultimate Logo Signature one of one, featuring a game worn patch and an on card auto. It's becoming more rare that we see cards like that also. I think that's another interesting piece of this, why maybe a card like this could still sell for one, even though it's not a rookie. It's not, also Kobe stuff just always is going to sell like that realistically. But nowadays, it's becoming more and more rare that we see cards that are, on card autos. They're one of ones. They're actual game worn patches, because I think Topps does a pretty good job at making sure a lot of their high end cards have actual patches from the games themselves. But Panini obviously has been known for not really doing that at all. And I wonder if in the long term, for a product like National Treasures, which I would say National Treasures is probably in the upper echelon, or no, it's probably like the number one product for Panini, like realistically. And then for Topps, it's like Topps Dynasty, I believe, is like the number one, or Tier 1, I think, is another big one, or I think there's one called like Dynasty, and then Tier 1, and there are a couple other like higher end patch cards. But I think with that product, you had a sort of a new concept that a lot of people hadn't really seen, and I don't think it flew under the radar. I think the people who were in the know probably were like, this is like insane. Nowadays, every new concept, every new product goes through like a couple rounds of not couple rounds, but like it goes through product testing. What's the word I'm looking for exactly? It goes through like product commenting. Like I don't know exactly. Like it's people talking about the product even before it even comes out. Like it goes through, you get the initial reviews, you get when the product comes out, people talk about it. And I'm wondering how much feedback the sports card companies take from people on social media, which, I've talked about, like where I'm trying to take things less seriously from that standpoint. So maybe they look at it and they say, well, I don't think, or they don't think that people within the hobby that are commentating on these types of things, maybe they feel like they don't know. So maybe they're not even looking into that type of stuff. But a card that for the most part, like, because the other piece of this is that nobody knew about this card until it was graded, or well, people knew about it, but they didn't know it actually existed. Like they didn't know where the card was until it was graded by PSA, which, I mean, it didn't have like the best grade necessarily. Like I believe it was like an 8 and then like a 9 auto or something along those lines. But I think with a card like that, the grade of it really is kind of irrelevant. Like I even think, I always say with these one of ones, like if you're grading them, if you're getting a PSA 10, I think that increases the value. Like, I don't know, I would put like a 0.25 multiplier or a 0.5 multiplier on it. And then I think between a PSA 7 and a PSA 9, you're really not seeing any value shift in the card's price. If you go below a 7, that's where I think you start to maybe see a little bit of a downtick in terms of what, the pricing of what it is. But with it also being a one of one, I think it's impossible really to know one way or the other if that is affecting the price, because it's really the only example of the card selling. Sure, you can use like some type of formula, like, when I was really in pricing, like when I was really getting into the data, like way back in the day when I was buying and selling pretty hard, the formula of what to price like one of ones or what to price low number parallels. I think that there are a couple different ways to do it. And I mean, I think it's more or less just like finding a card of another player and comparing the price of that, and then looking at some other, price indicators and seeing sort of where you think the price would be at. Also, with cards like this, $1 million, you got to look at, maybe a million, like 1.5 is a little high to most people. Obviously, I think to someone like me who probably will never buy anything for like $1 million, like to say that you spent that on a card is obviously a high price. But like the fact that we only knew that the card really, the fact that we only knew that the card basically existed in 2022 when it was graded, and now the fact that it's selling for the first time since basically the first time publicly, because I'm sure it's probably sold. I don't know. It's probably sold not online, I would guess, if I had to guess. But people didn't know that the card was there until it got graded. So someone probably looks at this and say, well, this is rare, but it's also hard to find. So like that probably adds a little bit to the price if I had to guess. So I just think that overall right now we maybe aren't going to see products nowadays that are like this, like the social media aspect of cards I've talked about on tons of episodes, where I think you look at just the overall scarcity, I think, is one thing, and the overall actual rarity of cards. Like that's sort of one thing that's kind of not in this era of cards, is the actual real scarcity of them. Like I think we have a bit of artificial scarcity. Like I think the way that the card companies have created the low end parallels have created scarcity that does technically exist because these cards are low numbered, but also there are so many of the low numbered versions of them that it's like, yeah, sure, it may be a one of one. And this is actually a topic that I maybe want to talk about on a different episode with a Topps product that was recently released. Like if there are one of ones and there are these super crazy cards in every single product, like does it devalue the price of the actual rare cards? And like how can you even determine, like if we have to be told what the rare cards are and not just be able to figure it out ourselves, like how rare are they? I don't know if that's exactly how I want to word it, but I think overall we are just in an era where we just aren't going to see those types of cards for those types of players probably ever get produced again. And then we're probably not going to see a card for a player like that sell in the $1.5 million range, almost 20 years after the product was released. So to start today's episode, I do have a quick update on that LeBron, KD, Steph triple auto. There's been a bunch of new people that have come in and made, crazy new offers. Like I think the highest one was Grand Slam Collectibles, and they were $500K. And like I said, I don't know. It's gotten super crazy, and like the 100K offer at that beginning just seems like insane. Now that it's up to 500K, and I think with the way that the market works, or at least one of the vaults potentially, I would say what I would do here is I would probably take the 500K offer, but then I would put together some sort of contract. And this would actually be pretty revolutionary for sports cards. It's kind of what happens has happened with NFTs and has been built into the system, where if you sell something, if you were the owner of it or you created it, you can basically get commission from when it sells again. So it's not exactly that, but I would sell the card for the 500K and say, for the first year, if you sell it within a year, I get an extra 10
I get 10% of whatever you sell it for. And then within 2 years, maybe it's 5%. If you sell it after 3 years, it's like at that point, I would be, if they don't sell it, if they buy the card and they don't sell it within 2 years, the 500K is the 500K. Even if it's up, even if it goes up significantly, I don't see how you would still realistically look at it and say, well, I could take some of that. But if they are selling it within, because that's my thing about it. It's like, if someone buys it for 500K and they sell it for $1 million within the same year, like, I don't know. It just seems like, it seems like you should be able to, I don't know. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it because, like I said, you could sell it for what that price is. And then hopefully if you can do that sort of contract, you'd be able to get at least some of the money back if they sell it within the year. Like, if the card is hypothetically worth $1 million and you sold it for 500K, like, again, it's very much like, well, you snooze, you lose kind of situation. But it's also like, well, I don't know. It shouldn't really be like that. And now the way that vaults are being so implemented, that would be something I think that would be very easy if the card continues to sell on the Vault platform. Obviously, once it goes off platform, or if you sell it off of it, then you don't really have the ability to kind of track this type of thing. But like, if you go to Golden and you say, if you bought a card and you bought it for a certain amount, you could maybe put that there's like a contract. If it sells again on the platform, you get X percentage of the sale of it. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, and I think it's actually something that would be very, I don't know, I guess because it's like the concept with the NFT is that the original owner is getting, or the original seller is getting the commission from it. So maybe it's not exactly the same, but either way, that's fine. So I guess maybe it'll be kind of a dual episode. I don't know exactly how I'm going to title the episode here, but the other piece of news that I'm going to talk about is that Topps announced that they have a Topps Dynasty Soccer 1-of-1 that is going to be a Salzburg Erling Haaland card. And that was his first team. So he made it, and the patch in the card is going to be from a game in his rookie year. So now we're getting into an interesting territory, I think, with how Topps could innovate, or how Topps could really put themselves, I think, above the rest. Like, and, obviously there's not really, the rest is like over Upper Deck and Panini. But with the concept of using old patches and the player is on the team that patch existed on, or whatever, because obviously Holland is on Holland. I always mess up that guy's name. So, however you want to pronounce it, I've heard it pronounced a bunch of different ways. So I'm whatever. But he's on Manchester City now, right? So Manchester City, he probably is going to have Manchester City patches in there as well. But like, the fact that they kind of revisionist history can create these types of cards, I think is very interesting. And like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure why they waited or how long they've had this patch for. Like, but I think the concept is very interesting. And I think it's going to be very interesting within soccer, probably more than any other sport, because your the trajectory for going from amateur to pro, or from pro to how it ends up going. You are a pro as soon as you step foot on, any field, really. Like, I don't think there's like, there is obviously the top 5 leagues, but I don't think there's like a certain league that people would say, if you're in this league, you're not a professional. Like, maybe you're semi-professional potentially. I could see people saying that, but I think like the fact that they first of all have the patch, I think, is really cool. And the fact that they're going to be putting it into a card, and they're not recreating a rookie card, but in a way they're doing something with the concept that I really like. And like I said, they're not recreating a rookie card that isn't like, because I believe the patch is from 2019. So it's a 5-year-old patch. So I don't know. I think it's a really cool concept. Like, if Topps were to invest, like, and I think this would actually work with maybe football, probably. Like, that would be one. And basketball, not as much. I think soccer is really where they're going to have to try and utilize this concept, probably a lot more than any other sport, just because, like I said, your rookie card for soccer is kind of determined by Topps. Like, they can decide when you have a rookie card. But at the same time, once you play for a small team like Salzburg, like, that's technically when you are a rookie. So again, I think Topps has an interesting future here with soccer and soccer rookies and how they're going to decide which cards or which team ends up being the team that is your rookie. And also with the licenses, like the fact that there's so many different types of licenses, like there's the club license, there's the UEFA license, there's the FIFA license. There's so many different licenses within soccer that allow Topps and Panini to make Premier League cards. Even though I think Panini has the EPL license, like Topps can still make EPL cards if it has to do with the Champions League. So that's kind of an interesting little wrinkle to soccer in general. That's, in my opinion, that's what makes soccer so interesting. I think it's very nuanced, but then the free agency or the transfer window is also very similar to the NBA, which I think is maybe one of the best, probably the most interesting off-season rumors, trade deadline. I think they have probably one of the best. I think MLB is good also, but I don't know. The fact that I feel like the stories in the NBA are just, they seem to be more interesting, and maybe it's because there's less players, which that would be counterintuitive to soccer because there's so many players within soccer that it's not really like that. I guess if you could look at it that from that standpoint. And with baseball, you get a lot of prospects being traded, so it's not, it's a lot of like if you know type situation where it's like if you know the players, it's probably a lot more interesting because, or if you know sort of the, I don't know, like who the third pitcher for whoever that's getting traded to the Yankees or getting traded because he's underrated or whatever. If you know those players, it's probably more interesting. But with soccer, because it's not free agency, really. In some scenarios it is, but then they have like the loans and all of these things, and that's what makes it so interesting for me. So Topps has an opportunity to I don't know if they'd be revolutionizing the specific sports types of cards, but this is definitely something that I think is really cool and that we haven't really seen. And I guess the other piece of this is like, hopefully they don't overdo it. I guess like hopefully this is a Topps dynasty type of thing, because if they start, for example, like I think one of maybe the downfalls you could call it of what Panini has done to some of their high-end products is just starting to include, the logo man, for example, in National Treasures, I feel like used to be one of the most important cards in all of the hobby. But now what I think Panini has done is they have just included the logo man concept in every product they can think of. It's even probably in like Prism, and it's like they've expanded that concept to the point where it's like the logo man isn't really super important anymore. So I'm hoping if Topps wants to do this with the soccer cards, with these like retro patches and kind of retroactively creating sort of a rookie card for these players, I hope that they keep it in Topps Dynasty and they don't like start doing anything crazy with any of some of these smaller products that they have for soccer. So today's episode is not necessarily going to be about any news topics. The last piece of news basically or at least the last piece of news that I saw come up in the past couple of days from Fanatics Fest was that there's going to be the debut patches on football and basketball cards, which, look, that's not super surprising. I mean, they did it with soccer. They did it with baseball. They did it with MLS. I don't know if we'll ever see it in like
leagues above the MLS because those leagues have a little bit more tradition, I feel like, than the MLS, and they aren't just going to be like, yeah, sure, just put a patch on. But I don't know. I mean, if Topps has some sort of deal with maybe a smaller league, maybe there is a potential we see some of the debut patches on these cards. But so that was kind of the big piece of news. The other thing that I want to talk about on today's episode is it's kind of a combination of two things. So it's one is I wonder if we are ever going to jump. There's the saying that's like jumping the shark. Like when I think there was a movie or a show. I forget what the reference is exactly. It might have been. I don't remember if it's a movie or a show, but there's an episode where essentially the concept of the analogy is like there's one of the characters jumps a shark in one of the shows. And I know that everybody listening to this podcast is screaming the name of the show right now, but either way, and then I guess the whole saying is that then the show started getting bad. I wonder if we're ever going to have one of those moments within sports cards, because we are still seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sales, millions of dollars worth of sales of individual cards. And it doesn't really seem to be slowing down that much. And, even when there are for Victor Wembanyama, for example, even when there are so many of his cards that are, rare in the sense that, sure, they're one of ones. But though, there's cards of his that are still selling in the $10,000, $100,000 range. Like, it wasn't always like that. Now, obviously, we have to account for, I don't know. I don't think accounting for inflation in this circumstance is really, I think it's beyond that point. Like if we were seeing highs in the high millions, maybe you could say, oh, that might be the case. But overall, I just wonder, like, if there's ever going to be a moment where we go back even farther than we are now. I don't really necessarily think so, because I think the other piece of this that's kind of related to this, I wonder if the sports card companies knowingly were affecting, if they looked at the market and they said, we actually are going to try and bring that down a little bit with modern cards. Now, older stuff, they don't really have any control over that. They don't have any control over whether people are buying, like the prices of buying and selling. Well, they don't really have any control at all. But I'm just saying, like, from the standpoint of how many cards there were to how many cards there are now, like, I wonder if Panini or Topps or Upper Deck, probably not, but I wonder if Panini or Topps looked at the landscape of the industry and they said, we don't really want there to be that much money being made from our cards that we aren't making. And I do think that's one reason why you're seeing a lot of stuff with Fanatics kind of, they're trying to get more pieces of the pie here when it comes to how people are making money in sports cards. But like the increasing of the print run, I wonder if at any point, along with the fact that they were just going to be making a ton more money, like the company, just from printing more product, if they looked at it and they objectively said, like, we're trying to bring down the price of cards, we're trying to bring down the price of cards on the secondary market. Again, I don't know. I think maybe that would be a conspiracy theory. If in 20 years we hear leaks from like executives saying that they were going to do that, I don't know what would happen. I think that would be kind of wild. Like I said, I think it's more of a conspiracy theory at this point. It's just something that, when I'm thinking of episodes, when I'm looking at news, I kind of try and talk about stuff that I feel like maybe isn't what everybody is talking about, I guess. I don't know. And if you listen to this podcast, you've heard me talk about soccer at length. Yesterday's episode, for example, you've heard me talk about, I think I've talked about like Fortnite and random things on this podcast. So it's not super surprising the some of the random topics that I'm trying to bring to the show, just to, for one thing, I hope that I want people to learn about some of these other random things. And also, I just enjoy talking about them. So I hope that you enjoyed listening here. Obviously, with it being Friday, where you're going to have the long episode for Saturday, which is like the recap on YouTube and then here on the podcast as well. But we are trying to get the YouTube numbers up. Danny has been doing such a phenomenal job posting interviews. And then like I said, on the Saturdays, I've been doing the longer full-length episodes with all of the episodes from the week. I've heard feedback that a lot of people like that because they can just listen to it all at once. And it's, I do try and keep the episodes all pretty different. So, you are keeping up with sort of what the big news was over this past week, basically, which is what that Saturday episode is. So make sure you go check out the YouTube. It's just Hobby News Daily, and subscribe there. I think we're getting close to like 500 subscribers, so we're trying to really push for that. Also, if you're I don't know, if you're listening on Spotify or you're listening on Apple, make sure to leave a review. And I'm sorry that this part of the episode has turned into maybe a little bit of an ad towards the end of the Friday episode here, but it is what it is. I'm just saying we're trying to push for some growth here within the podcast and within YouTube stuff. So we would really appreciate that. And just overall, I think we are at a point where things are going to be changing very soon. And I think that's probably pretty obvious. Fanatics is going to be taking over the basketball and football licenses relatively soon in the next couple of years. So I don't know. I think it is interesting. Like, I heard people talk about monopolies and, how are they able to just get all of the major licenses? And it's probably because there are hundreds and thousands of different licenses that can be owned. So just because they own the three biggest doesn't necessarily mean it's a monopoly, unfortunately, for some people who wish it probably was, who wish there was a little bit more competition. And that's always a debate where you look back to like the 90s, and we're in kind of a similar situation right now that we were in the 90s. Now, not the market and publicity and price wise, but like in terms of how many cards there are that you can get of any given player. Back then, it was just a bunch of different companies that were making products. Now it's just one or two companies that are making a bunch of different products. So it's really like pick your poison in terms of like if competition is actually good for the industry. I think ultimately it probably is, just based on like I've looked at the video game industry, for example. Like, I play a lot of Madden, I play a lot of Call of Duty, and over Madden specifically, they basically are just copying and pasting the game for the most part year to year. And it really is like, because they don't have any competition, because EA has the only NFL license, so no one else can come out with an NFL game, really. Like, and we didn't even see an alternative football game until NCAA came out this year. So are we going to go down an EA rabbit hole where year after year it's basically just copy and paste? And the microtransactions, I don't necessarily think correlate to this for cards, but I guess you could look at it and say, well, anytime you're buying cards, technically that's a microtransaction, but at the same time, it's more just a regular transaction, because it's not like a game where you're buying $60 and you're getting the game or whatever, which that would be kind of interesting. I think we've, when I was first getting back into cards, I saw a couple companies that were trying to do that. I don't know how successful they were. Like, I don't see them around anymore, but it may just because I'm not looking for them. Like, I'm not as in-depthly looking at sports card content on Instagram or Twitter. I'm mostly just looking for news stories and trying to cover some of the news. But like, there were companies that were creating like boxes that had packs in them, like different packs. Like, each month you'd get a box and you'd have a different pack. I'm sure there probably are companies that still do that, but I don't know. If I'm Topps, that's something that I think would probably be a pretty good idea. And I don't know if it's a breaking thing or if it's like what exactly they want to do, but I just think that would be a cool concept for them to do, would be to bring in or bring back or bring in, I don't know which one you want to say there, but to incorporate this kind of mystery packs along with all of the regular packs that they're offering in the regular product. I don't know if that really gets into the like the $60 for the video game or whatever, and it's like you pay the certain amount every year, you pay whatever $150 $200, which I think unfortunately it probably would be in the like $300 to $500 range if you're doing like a monthly thing. Like, if each release, if you're I don't know how they would do it, and it's kind of maybe more brainstorming there, but I think that would be an interesting concept. And just the overall look and feel of cards, I think one thing that Fanatics has done, and that I really hope that they continue to do, is just innovate, like just come up with new ideas and don't just, like don't do the EA example where they're just basically copying and pasting the game every single year and people play the game because it gets the updated rosters, all that stuff. I just hope that Fanatics looks at that kind of concept and says, we aren't going to be EA, we are going to be what EA kind of is, but also we aren't just copying and pasting and putting the same stuff in all the packs every single year.